We work in two areas. One is producing high-performance components for small satellites to enable them to do real missions for the intelligence community and commercial operators. As well, the other half of the company is working on robotic manufacturing and assembly technologies to enable in-space assembly and manufacturing of space systems. And our long-term goal is to bring those two things together to enable the construction of persistent infrastructure to support an in-space economy.
Wow, all of that. My name is Robin Toth, and I am 5 weeks on the job. I'm the Governor's Director of Aerospace. So thank you very much for the invitation here.
Roy Gonzarski, the CEO of Magni X. We are developing propulsion, all electric propulsion for commercial aerospace and defense, 9 passengers and above. We've had our motors now running for over 1,000 hours and plan on doing our test flying starting next year.
And my name is Brian Canfield. I'm PNAA's new Business Development Director. Excited to be here today, and thank you all for coming out to our next event. As many of you know, PNAA has served the aerospace community at large for over 20 years here in the Pacific Northwest, connecting the aerospace manufacturing community through networking events, different trainings, and conferences. And over the last several months, we've looked at what's happening in aerospace, and we've recognized that there are all these new segments, things like space and new space, things like hypersonic and sonic, as well as electric propulsion, hybrid electric propulsion, and then a whole host of autonomous vehicles, from completely autonomous aircraft, urban airlift, and some fun things like flying cars. So some really exciting things. And these are segments that are really on the fringes of traditional aerospace. They look, feel, act, and operate differently than some of the traditional aerospace companies that have been around for dozens, or in some cases, over 100 years. So next, the New and Expanding Technologies is a new program that we've put together at PNAA that's designed to complement the things that we've done very well historically with traditional aerospace, but start to integrate those with all of these new and exciting segments. So we have a cross-section, as you've heard, of these different segments today, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can blend those together and how they stand alone uniquely. So our first question, for anyone that would like to address it, is how do these new segments, these segments that you all serve in, differ from traditional aerospace?
I guess I'll start, and I'll give a nod to the new space folks. It's kind of old space to me, because I was on the board of the X Prize Foundation when we put up the Ansari X Prize, and of course that was won in 2002, and now we have a sort of thriving private space industry. So it's fun to see develop. There's some parallels there with space and flying cars. People don't know how to do it. We're not sure about urban air mobility, the acronym that we're using for intercity short distance aviation, but we're trying to do the same thing, make up a new market that doesn't really exist, where you can take off vertically and translate yourself across the city, land vertically, and as a commercial business, do several of those within the peak commuting hours. You can't really do that with aircraft. You can't do it with existing helicopters because they're expensive and loud and other issues. So that's one of the ways that it's really different. One of the ways that I see it becoming similar is that with X Prize, we were concerned that nobody wanted to see ballistic trajectories inside of the United States, least of all the FAA. We got to Marion Blakey and said, well, she was the head of the FAA at the time, we're going to have competitors launching in Kazakhstan and Saskatchewan and Woomera, Australia. Shouldn't we be doing this here? And she said, yes, we need to do this. And so that opened up and allowed us to sort of retain that position. We're seeing the same sort of issues with eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing, urban air mobility. Nobody wants it here, but everybody really wants it. Did you get stuck in traffic today? Of course we need to use that third dimension. So there's my long answer.
Yeah.
Similarities, differences, we don't know how it's all going to play out, but it's going to come.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Other thoughts?
Well, The small sat revolution is really kind of bringing Moore's law to the space industry finally. For the past 6 decades, the space industry has really been dominated by big, expensive systems, big, expensive programs. But so small sats have been around for a couple of decades, but over the last 5-6 years, they've really started to take hold and become a big focus for the whole industry. And the lower cost and rapid time scales afforded by small sats is enabling new players to be able to participate in developing space businesses, bringing the cost down to where small businesses and startups can build and launch a CubeSat or small sat to prove out their business plan, and then get more funding to be able to build a whole constellation and get a viable business going. So it's a really exciting time in the space industry. It's really starting to, or it is disrupting the industry. We're already seeing a number of the kind of the big, long-established players who are used to making lots of money, building a few billion-dollar satellites a year. They're getting disrupted by a number of small upstarts who are doing providing similar capabilities, maybe not quite as much capability, but they're doing it for a couple orders of magnitude less, and by being able to put up a large number of small sats, being able to provide capabilities that are more resilient. So we're seeing really big and exciting changes in the space industry. And looking forward, we are doing a lot of work on what we think is going to be the next disruption in the space industry, and that's capabilities for manufacturing and assembling space systems on orbit, which we believe are going to provide order of magnitude improvements in the performance per cost for a large number of different missions.
And I'm going to go back to your question, how did we launch into this new space from aerospace, and what are the attributes that we use in aerospace, and why are we successful in new space? And I think we just heard from a company at a meeting before this that why are they in Seattle? It's because of the workforce, it's because of the cost, and they call Seattle ideal for their ability to be able to launch their new products, so to speak. And I think it's really the appetite here for research and development. It's our workforce. People really prize our workforce. And I think some of the things that we're thinking about for the future is how we keep investing in that. I know that we have, from the aerospace perspective, a lot of policy issues that we want to address with workforce, more investment in community and technical colleges, more apprenticeship and training, and more R&D at the four-year colleges. And I think all of that is going to help us with our new space workforce.
To me, the difference between traditional aerospace and what we are now is more cultural. When Bill Boeing, Howard Hughes, McDonnell, Juan Trippe, they bet everything against a million odds to be successful. The namesake companies today, Boeing, what wasn't McDonnell Douglas, don't do that anymore. They've all forgotten where they come from, they have too much to lose, and they don't take risks. We are back to the days of we're risking everything. Everything. We have a saying in our company that's all in all the time. There's a million legitimate reasons we will fail. But for the one that will succeed, we will revolutionize the way commerce and transportation is done today. I think that's the main difference.
Really a state of innovation and like you said, high risk, really.
Yeah.
Who's going to create the next revolution in transportation?
Absolutely.
That's great. Rob, I had a chance to speak with you, and you mentioned that your company is growing significantly. Maybe a question for Robin. What type of growth do you expect to see here in the Pacific Northwest with some of these segments? And I have mentioned space and the UAVs, the unmanned, all those different segments. Some information you can share?
Well, we see significant opportunity here, and Sadia, I think, mentioned, I don't know where she went.
Here.
Over there, that we're starting out with space here in Washington State. It's almost a $2 billion a year economic impact. And we see by 2040 globally, it is going to be $1.1 or $1.4 trillion. So that's quite a mountain that we have to climb in